Marcus Whitmore had everything money could buy except the one thing that mattered most. Standing on the wraparound deck of his lakeside mansion in the exclusive Pine Haven Estates, he watched his 8-year-old son Leo chase fireflies in the twilight, moving through a world of absolute silence. Leo had been born profoundly deaf, a genetic condition the doctors said was irreversible. Marcus had spent millions on consultations with specialists across 3 continents. The answer was always the same. Nothing could be done. His son would never hear a Cardinals song, never hear his father say, "I love you" out loud, never hear the sound of his own laughter. The Pine Haven Estates Homeowners Association had made Marcus's life hell from the moment he'd moved in 3 years ago. President Victoria Chen, a real estate heiress who lived in the Tudor monstrosity across the lake, had led the charge. She'd filed 17 complaints about Leo in the past year alone. "Mr. Whitmore, your son was playing in the common area after designated hours again," Victoria announced one Saturday morning, appearing at his door with her clipboard and 2 board members flanking her like bodyguards. She wore a cream pantsuit that probably cost more than most people's cars, and her expression suggested she'd smelled something rotten. Marcus kept his voice level. The designated hours on till sunset. It was 5:30 in the evening. "The rules clearly state that children must be supervised at all times in common areas," Victoria said, tapping her pen against the clipboard. "Your son was alone. I was watching from the deck. I can see the entire area from there." Victoria's smile was razor-thin. "Nevertheless, we decided to implement a new policy. All children in common areas must be accompanied by an adult within arm's reach, for safety reasons." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He'd heard from other residents that Victoria had never enforced this rule with anyone else. This was targeted, and they both knew it. "Leo is deaf, not incapable," Marcus said quietly. "He's actually more aware of his surroundings than most kids because he relies on his other senses." "That's precisely our concern," Victoria interrupted. "A child who can't hear approaching vehicles or warning shouts poses a liability to the community." The word liability hit Marcus like a physical blow. His son, reduced to a legal concern, a risk to be managed. "There are no vehicles in the common area," Marcus said, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "It's a playground and a walking path." "For now," Victoria said, "but we're discussing opening it to golf cart traffic. And frankly, Mr. Whitmore, several residents have expressed discomfort with Leo's presence. They find his vocalizations disturbing." Marcus's hands curled into fists at his sides. Leo sometimes made sounds when he played, happy noises he couldn't modulate because he'd never heard them. The idea that anyone found his son's joy disturbing made Marcus want to tear down the entire HOA with his bare hands. "I think we're done here," Marcus said, beginning to close the door. Victoria placed a designer heel against the doorframe. "There will be a special meeting this Thursday at 7 p.m. The board is voting on whether to require all residents with disabled family members to carry additional liability insurance. $1 million policy, at minimum. I suggest you attend." As she turned to leave, Leo appeared beside Marcus, tugging on his father's sleeve. His small hands moved in fluid gestures. "Who is that? Why does she look angry?" Marcus crouched down, signing back. "No one important. She's just unhappy with her own life, so she tries to make others unhappy too." Leo's face scrunched in confusion. "That doesn't make sense." "I know, buddy. Some things don't." That night, after Leo was asleep, Marcus sat in his study staring at a small wooden box on his desk. He'd kept it locked in a safe for 3 years, unable to look at it, unable to throw it away. Inside was a last gift from his late wife, Elena. She'd died from complications during Leo's birth, and Marcus had found this box in her hospital bag weeks later. A note in her handwriting was taped to the lid. "For Leo, when the time is right. Trust me. Trust this." Marcus had opened it once, 3 years ago, and found something impossible inside. A perfectly preserved hummingbird feather, iridescent green and gold, tied with a red thread to a smooth river stone. Beneath it was a folded letter in Elena's handwriting. The letter had made no sense. Elena had written about her grandmother, a woman from a small village in Ecuador who'd been known as a curandera, a healer. She'd written about old magic, about songs carried in stones and vibrations that could wake sleeping parts of the soul. Marcus had dismissed it as a morphine-addled writings of a dying woman, too grief-stricken to accept reality. But now, facing the possibility of losing his home or being forced to carry his son around like a porcelain doll, Marcus opened the box again. He read the letter fully this time, slowly, letting each word sink in. Elena had been specific. The stone had to be placed under Leo's pillow during the new moon. The feather had to be held over his heart while Marcus sang a specific song, a lullaby Elena's grandmother had taught her. The song didn't have to be heard. Elena had written. It had to be felt. It was absurd. It was impossible. It was magic in a world that ran on science and money and power. But Marcus had run out of science and money and power. The new moon was tonight. At midnight, Marcus crept into Leo's room. His son slept sprawled across his bed, one arm hanging off the edge, his face peaceful in the moonless dark. Marcus carefully slid the smooth river stone under Leo's pillow, then sat on the edge of the bed, holding the hummingbird feather. He felt ridiculous. A grown man, a millionaire who'd built a tech empire from nothing, sitting in the dark with a feather and a rock, believing in magic. But he began to sing anyway. The lullaby Elena had taught him during her pregnancy, a melody that rose and fell like bird wings, like heartbeats, like waves. He pressed the feather against Leo's chest and sang with his whole body, feeling the vibrations in his throat, his ribs, his hands. Nothing happened. Marcus sang for an hour, then 2. His voice grew hoarse, but he kept going, pouring every ounce of desperate love into the melody. He thought of Elena, of her smile, of the way she'd refused to believe in impossible things. He thought of Leo, of his bright eyes and brilliant mind, trapped in silence through no fault of his own. As dawn began to lighten the sky, Marcus's voice finally gave out. He slumped forward, exhausted, the feather falling from his fingers onto Leo's chest. He'd failed. Again. But then Leo's eyes opened. His son sat up, the feather sliding into his lap, and his expression was one Marcus had never seen before. Wonder. Pure, absolute wonder. Leo's hands moved frantically. "Dad, what is that?" "What is what?" Leo pointed toward the window, where the first birds were beginning their morning songs. His hands trembled as he signed. That sound. Those sounds. There are so many sounds. "Dad, I can hear everything." Marcus stopped breathing. "Leo." His son's eyes went wide as moons. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Dad." The word was whisper-soft, unpracticed, perfect. Is that my voice?" Marcus pulled his son into his arms and wept. The doctors couldn't explain it. The audiologist ran the test 3 times, certain her equipment was malfunctioning. But the results were undeniable. Leo's hearing was not just restored but perfect, perhaps more acute than a typically hearing child. "It's medically impossible," the specialist told Marcus, shaking his head. His auditory nerves were completely underdeveloped. "There's no surgery, no treatment that could achieve this. I don't understand what I'm seeing." Marcus didn't try to explain. Some things existed beyond understanding. The HOA meeting was that Thursday. Marcus brought Leo with him, and this time, when Victoria started to speak, Leo didn't need to read lips or watch hands. "Mr. Whitmore, regarding the insurance requirement for disabled residents." "My son isn't disabled," Marcus said calmly. Victoria's expression turned condescending. "Mr. Whitmore, denial isn't healthy." "I can hear you," Leo said clearly, his voice ringing through community center. Every head turned. "I can hear everything. The air conditioning humming. Mrs. Patterson's stomach growling 3 seats away. Mr. Chen's phone vibrating in his pocket even though the meeting hasn't started yet." The room fell silent. Victoria's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been shame. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You don't need to," Marcus said, standing. He took Leo's hand. "We're withdrawing our complaint about the insurance requirement. We're also withdrawing from this community. We've already closed on a house in Riverside Oaks. Better schools, better neighbors, better people." As they walked toward the door, Leo turned back. "Mrs. Chen, I heard what you said about me, about my vocalizations being disturbing. I'm sorry my happiness bothered you. I hope you find some of your own someday." Outside, in the parking lot, Leo tugged on his father's sleeve. "Dad, how did this happen? How can I hear?" Marcus pulled out the wooden box from his jacket pocket. Inside, the hummingbird feather glowed faintly in the streetlight, and the river stones seemed to pulse with warmth. "Your mother," Marcus said softly. "She left you a gift. She left us both a gift." Leo touched the feather reverently. "Magic." "Love," Marcus corrected, which might be the same thing. As they drove away from Pine Haven Estates for the last time, Leo pressed his face against the window, listening to the symphony of the world. Tires on asphalt, wind through trees, his father's breathing, his own heartbeat. All the sounds he'd waited 8 years to hear. And somewhere, Marcus knew, Elena was smiling.